Hey, what's up, friends? I'm glad that you decided to come over to the 825 days side of Writing for Freedom today. I think with the commercial, which is you can view again at the top of the page by clicking on the intro book cover, or some of the shorter clips that have been pushed out to social media, along with other content around this site, I'm pretty sure that you probably have an idea why you're here, so I'm not going to take a lot of time. I just wanted to put a little video here on the invitation page while you make your decision whether you'd like to subscribe or not. So I'm Brett Richards. I created the idea for writingforfreedom.com and the concept for the nonfiction memoir that I wrote while I was serving 825 days for a crime that never happened. I was never convicted, but we'll get into that in a bit. So, to introduce you to my book, the name of the book is 825 Days, The Crime That Never Happened and How I Survived 27 Months of Imprisonment to Prove It. Because this is a nonfiction memoir, and because the agency that I worked for was a public civil agency governed by publicly elected politicians, and I was a civil employee, and all of the documents covering my employment, what we did, and so forth are public records, there's just no point in building in suspense about what happened. Almost anybody could have written this book if they'd taken the time and a few clicks of the mouse at rvsd.org or a number of other agencies that you'll be introduced to later. But let me assure you that nobody could have written my story. And so, excuse me. And so that's what I'm here to do. I do want to preface this by saying that the story is very intense and emotional, and I'm committed to the best of my ability to keep this very raw and organic, very transparent, so you won't see me cutting away too often. If it gets emotional, you'll see me happy and excited, or you'll see me sad. You're certainly going to see me cry, and that's something that's pretty unique for me. I went probably 20 years without crying one time, maybe longer than that. So just hang in there. If I fall apart too much, I won't make you endure pulling it back together. I'll chop that out and make a nice transition, and we'll move on. So what can you expect if you choose to subscribe on this page below the video, or on our support page, option 1. Option 1 on the support page is the same subscription, the same option that you're viewing now, and which is available at the bottom here. The first thing that you'll receive if you choose to subscribe is access to the video forum, where you can watch me read my book, 825 Days, in short segments. The segments will be based around the sections in each chapter. So my goal is to capture an entire section. So there are places where I describe my experiences in the Philippine prison, and those are 6-7 pages, so that would be a video. There are sections where I talk about where I was born and growing up with my family. Those are short. That's all in the first chapter, that biographical stuff. So that might be broken up into perhaps 2 videos. There is some content later on when we get into the legal issues, which take quite a while. For example, I introduce you to California's 995 process and talk about the 995 that my attorneys filed on my behalf. That's an entire chapter. It's about 30 pages, and that just wouldn't make a very good a single video. So I've broken that up into sections as well, so that you can absorb what I was dealing with and what I learned. I'll be uploading, for your viewing pleasure, 2 to 3 videos per month. And I'll be adding videos. For example, I've got a holiday video, I think, planned for this holiday season. I'll probably have a summer video about summer break and what we're going to do. There will be fun and silly stuff mixed in with the raw content, the hard content. But you can expect 2 to 3 videos of the book at a minimum per month. You'll also receive access to the family forum, and that's where we can get to know each other better. This is where I'll talk about some of the specific issues that I learned coming out of the book, like the presumption of innocence, exculpatory and inculpatory evidence, and things that a lot of people don't know about. On the other hand, You may be someone who's in trouble with the law, or has been, or might be, or you might be related to somebody that is, or you might be related to an innocent person like me who still is involved with the law. In any case, I want to be here to help all of you to the best of my ability. You may have a child, or your father may be incarcerated, or you may know a cousin or a role model or somebody you love very much. The forum would be an opportunity for you to come in and talk about your conditions, circumstances, but think in terms of PG, okay? We're not going to glorify crime or advertise it. We're not. This is not a place to brag or talk about your successes as a criminal. In fact, that's likely to bring you under investigation. And everybody should know right out front that I was innocent. I was not a criminal. I met many great people, and I love them all for who they are. But if the forum gets a bit silly that direction, of course, we would delete that, and those users would be kicked out of the site immediately. So it's a PG place. But that being said, our lives are raw and dramatic, and issues like this are dangerous and sensitive. So it's not going to be edited. You can feel free to be honest and share your circumstances or loved ones and ask for help. I won't be giving legal advice. I'm not a lawyer, but I did spend a long time locked up, and I fought a very difficult case, and I learned a lot of basics that would be helpful for just about anybody. So those two benefits together, both informational, educational, and entertaining, are what you'll receive if you choose to subscribe. In terms of writing a book, I wanted to show you quickly, just so that you know that I'm not making this up, or I'm not inviting you to something I haven't done yet. This is what a 800-page double-spaced memoir looks like. That's the cover page for part 1. My book has 3 parts, and then the green dividers are all the part 1 chapters. The fuchsia dividers are the part 2 chapters, and the blue dividers are the part 3 chapters. And you can see the book. It is absolutely written. I don't need to write it after this. So with that, I wanted to share part of chapter 2 with you real quick, so that you can get an idea what I'll be writing about specifically and how I write. So this is actually chapter 2. The font's blown up to a 14 font because I'm getting older, and I wrote it in 12 font, but I'm reading it out of 14 font. So that's not quite what the actual book looks like. But you get the idea. So there's a heading for every chapter, and then there's a timeline so that you'll know where in the story I fit. And there's reasons for that. I tell the story linearly, more or less, but I add some I think, tasteful side tracks, and I want you to know where in the story those things occurred. So with that, let me read these couple of pages for you, and then I'll close with just some final thoughts. Beginning chapter 2. I didn't have nearly as much time sitting alone in that tiny police outpost in Mobile as I would have liked. I found it frightening, my need for autonomy, when I knew that what I was enjoying was about to end. I was placed, unguarded and unchained, in what I assumed was the local commandant's office, or whatever they call their barangay police boss. After perhaps 20 or 30 minutes, a large man in an ill-fitting but impressive uniform came into the room and sat in the chair behind the desk. Oddly, he spoke very little English. Over the course of the next 30 minutes, we tried to communicate. He tried to ask my name, but after failing to understand what I was telling him, he gave up and left. After about 20 minutes, a couple of my friends came to the station and were allowed into the room. One of them was quite capable with Tagalog, and he managed to tell the boss who he was, why we were in Mobile, and then he vouched for me and offered his card. This made me feel very good, but it seemed to serve no purpose that I could tell. After this interaction, my friends and I walked out of the station and stood in the front yard by the sidewalk and chatted. I don't understand why this was allowed, but I wasn't complaining. Nobody, including the local police, seemed to know what was going to happen next, and the anxiety was deafening. Finally, after fidgeting about for a while, we gave each other hugs, which would be some of the last intimate contact that I would have with humans for almost 825 days. Then my friends straggled away, probably feeling worse than I did in that moment. I wandered around the immediate area, slowly expanding my circle, almost subliminally testing the limits of my captors. I half wondered if I could just walk away, but I knew that was a very bad idea. After wearing a hole in the sidewalk, I went inside and urinated in a hole in the bathroom floor. I unsuccessfully looked for fresh water, and then I texted a few of my other friends to tell them that I probably wouldn't be seeing them again for quite some time. After perhaps another 30 minutes or so, a man named Adonis arrived. Adonis looked like a CrossFit instructor, and he was obviously in charge. He spoke flawless English, and the others were almost literally bowing to him. It was unusual to meet Filipinos in public service that didn't speak fairly good English, so I thought it odd to have been initially approached by 3 or 4 tourist police who could barely communicate with me. Though I had tried to learn Visayan and was okay with some packaged tourist phrases, there was no way that I could communicate in police jargon. But this was solved by the arrival of Adonis. When Adonis first came into the room where I waited, he had something on his phone that he held up and used to identify me, ending any confusion they had about who I might have been. I assumed that these pictures and possibly a report, but I have no idea. Then he re-explained to me that my country had contacted the Philippines and told them that I was involved in some sort of conflict and that I would need to go home and deal with it. Adonis went on to explain that it was his job to take me to Cebu, one of the Philippines' largest cities, and there transfer me to the people who would ultimately see me safely home. When I responded that I had no questions or comments, he informed me that he was going to go have lunch before the drive back to Cebu. So I took up my walking circle and continued thinking and speculating about this terrifying new turn of events. Okay, so that's part of chapter 2. That's probably 2 out of 30 or 31 pages in that chapter. The full videos after subscription will probably be somewhere in the neighborhood of 3, 4, or 5 times that long. Again, as long as it takes to capture the entire thought or the entire experience or whatever I'm trying to communicate. Thank you for stopping by 825 Days. I hope that you'll spend some time looking around Writing for Freedom. There's a lot of good content over there. In particular, be sure and check out our purpose page, ADR and mediation page, the inspiration page I think is interesting. The inmate gallery is expanding and is going to be quite nice. But most of all, I hope that you'll subscribe below and come and join me on this journey and watch me read my book and participate with me in my family forum. If you still have some questions left, please be sure and go to the support page. I think it is up here to your upper right on the top of the menu. There I explain a lot more in detail about why I'm doing what I'm doing and how we're trying to help people. And then again, of course, there again, option 1 is the subscription that we're talking about here. I hope to see you inside. Until then, have a great day. My name's Brett Richards. Goodbye.